From being just one game away from the NBA Finals, to losing their emerging superstar player to a career-threatening injury just over a year later. Just a couple of seasons later, not a single player from their potential championship-winning roster remained a Pacer. This is the story of how the Indiana Pacers imploded from contender to nobody. Let's get deep into this, but before going straight to the content, here is the brand new information on the channel is that 3 lucky winners will get a chance to win PS5. Only you have to comment your views on this situation in the comment section below. Let's start today's topic. The Indiana Pacers are ridiculed for it now, but the draft night move they made to send future superstar Kawhi Leonard to the San Antonio Spurs in return for George Hill in 2011 looked like some savvy front office work by Larry Bird and company. In that same offseason, the Pacers bought in David West, an all-star power forward from the New Orleans Pelicans, to pair in the front court with emerging big man Roy Hibbert. With Paul George being at the center of a Pacers rebuild, the team now featured a comparable Big Three they hoped would help them compete with powerhouse teams in the East like the Big Three in Miami and Boston. In the lockout-shortened 2011 season, the Pacers made their expected rise to stardom by finishing third in a top-heavy Eastern Conference, a massive jump from the 8th seed just a season ago. But the Pacers were still far from reaching their climactic ceiling. The hiring of coach Frank Vogel added a revitalizing dimension to the team. During the 2010-11 season, the Pacers finished in the bottom half of the league in points allowed. Just 1 year later with Coach Vogel, the team hugely improved in their overall defense, finishing 7th in total defensive rating. Vogel helped Indiana establish a new identity as a bruising defensive juggernaut, but they were pretty good on the other side of the ball too. After Indiana was forced to begin looking past budding superstar Danny Granger because of consistent availability concerns, the two big guns on offense were now George and West, who helped elevate Indiana to a top 10 scoring offense in the league in 2011-12. Most rebuilds in the NBA can take years to even an entire decade, but these Indiana Pacers, they appeared ready for prime time and for an opportunity to go to the mat with some of the league's top squads. Everything largely hinged on George, and his fast development was what Indiana hoped would instantly catapult them to deep playoff runs. In 2011, Paul George, now assuming a much more significant role in the offense, boosted his scoring average to 13 points per game, including multiple 30-plus point outbursts during the regular season. What was even more encouraging was how incredibly capable he was on the defensive side of the ball. Listed as a shooting guard, Paul George possessed the rare capability of guarding 1 through 4 as a 6'9" wing. His rangy defense, being the best player on the team, set the tone for Indiana's feisty defense throughout the George West Hibbert era in Indy. When the third-seed Pacers stormed into the 2012 NBA playoffs, there was a reason for expectation for a team led by a 21-year-old star. In the first round, the Pacers took down the former Eastern Conference champs 3 years earlier, winning the series in just 5 games with several double-digit wipeouts. The 2012 Orlando Magic weren't the same 2009 team that went to the NBA Finals, but it was still a quality win for a squad that played fewer combined playoff games than Orlando's superstar Dwight Howard. In the semifinals would come the challenge for the baby Pacers. This time, it was the hungry Miami Heat looking to avenge their brutal finals loss from a year ago. The Pacers got out to a staggering 2-1 lead on the Heat, convincing the Pacers fans for a minute that the team would pull the upset on the prohibitively favored Heat. After blowing Miami out in Game 3, the Pacers failed to win another game, including suffering a couple of woeful losses to fall to the Heat in 6 games. Who knows, maybe they were starstruck, or a bit nervous, but they would certainly be back. Come the 2012-13 season, the Pacers bought back nearly the identical roster from their breakout campaign a season ago. There was one big change, and it happened in-house. The rise of fan favorite and ear-blower Lance Stevenson. Being George's counterpart in the 2010 NBA draft, it was a bit of a delayed rise to brief stardom for Stevenson. George opened up the year averaging a superstar quality 25 points per game and a hyper-efficient 43% from three-point range. But after the next 24 games, the Pacers weirdly struggled, going 12-12 over those games, and then followed it up by going 8-10 in March, prompting David West to say, "I would say we've hit rock bottom." The Pacers finished the last 2 months of the season ranking 29th in total offense. There are a few reasons the Pacers subtly collapsed toward the end of the year, some of those being Lance Stevenson's locker room issues with teammate Evan Turner and some controversy over the team's portrayal in GQ magazine a couple of months earlier. They were a troubled basketball team internally, and it reared its its ugly head out on the court. After that 33-7 start, the Pacers finished with a not-so-flattering 56 wins. Still good, but an underwhelming finish, to say the least. The Pacers went into the 2014 NBA playoffs on the fringe of internally breaking, but they were still expected to make a deep run and perhaps even get to the finals. Stunningly, Indy just barely survived round 1 to the Hawks, winning in a Game 7 after somehow finding themselves in a 3-2 deficit. In the semis, they won in 6 games against the Wizards, before meeting Miami again for the 3rd year in a row. The Pacers, much like the story of their enigmatic season, came out firing. Before losing 3 straight games and facing a 3-1 deficit, they would end up losing in 6 games and would underwhelmingly go out again in the playoffs. They made a deep run for the 2nd year in a row, but it just felt so flattening to lose the way they did after running through teams for the majority of the regular season, including wins against Miami. After that season would come quite the premature turning point for still a very young team. The 2014 offseason came a largely unspectacular time for the Pacers. Before making any moves, they tried handling Lance Stephenson's contract situation, which was, of course, a pressing need for the team to resign last year's most improved player candidate. They offered Lance a 5-year deal worth $44 million, which he quickly declined. After the situation went unsettled for a while, Lance would accept a contract from the Charlotte Hornets. A staggering loss for Indy and one that stung fans. They scrambled to find a replacement for Lance, signing swingman CJ Miles, a nice player but not what Lance was. Just a couple of months later would come more terrifying news for the team. On August 1, 2014, Pacers superstar Paul George gruesomely snapped his lower leg in half in a Team USA scrimmage game, ending Indiana's hope for another title push in the 2014-15 season. The Pacers without George and Lance won 38 games in a forgettable year. Come the off-season of 2015, came more roster shakeups for the Pacers. Unhappy with the direction of the team, their 2 star core players David West and Roy Hibbert both announced their exit from Indiana. Hibbert took a deal to play with the Lakers, where he was never the same player, and a disgruntled David West took a $12 million pay cut to play with the Spurs. In 2 off-seasons, gone were 3 of Indiana's vital core pieces were gone that helped them reach Game 7 of the ECF against LeBron and the company. In other news, the Pacers attempting to go for a smaller and faster style signed Monty Ellis and used their 2015 draft selection on Texas star Miles Turner. While there was plenty of reason for angst in the organization and fan dissatisfaction, there was still one big reason for excitement in Indy: the return of Paul George. Paul George returned in full force, putting together his best season as a pro with averages of over 23 points with 2 steals. And more convincingly, they played a full season and stayed healthy throughout. Their top draft pick, Miles Turner, looked like a future all-star by earning all-rookie second-team honors. CJ Miles, who was now defaulted to the 3rd option on the team, was nothing extraordinary, but a productive scorer nonetheless. The 15-16 Pacers, with PG-13 and a bunch of role players, finished 7th in the East and lost in a grueling 7 games versus the Raptors in the first round. Moving to 2016-17, after a quiet off-season for the Pacers, more of the same happened. George was superstar caliber again. This time beat his highest scoring average from a year ago with 24 points per game and a career-high 39% from 3. The Pacers, again, lost in the first round again to LeBron and his Cavs. When the 2017 off-season rolled around, it would become the final straw in the once rising young powerhouse Pacers. The Pacers traded Paul George to the OKC Thunder in exchange for Victor Oladipo and a couple of draft picks. An end of an era in Indy. The Pacers of the early to mid-2010s were an incredibly promising, rising young team that hit all-time highs and pretty dismal lows. All in all, for what it was worth, Indy had a solid core in place that nearly helped them reach the mountaintop. But because of some bruising competition and some bad decision-making on the part of Larry Bird, what do you think about the Indiana Pacers going from legitimate contenders to absolute nobodies in a span of just 3 seasons? Do let us know in the comment section below and get a chance to win a brand new PS5. If you enjoyed watching the video, do like and share, and yes, don't forget to hit that notification bell. Thank you so much.